So everyone should see my screen here. Okay, so one of the things we're going to cover today is just reporting and different dashboarding type elements on time. So one of the things that I think is really great about Acumatica is the ability to input and output time and report on it. You can see here a pretty basic use case of a generic inquiry. I've got two parameters up here, and I'll show you kind of how these work. With demo data, I've got it set pretty far back into the past, but as I change those parameters, it will update the reporting data that it shows. And so it's pulling in more and more of these what are called time activities. Now, time activities are important, and I think that that's one of the key elements of our discussion today, because time activities are what feed a time card. They can come from your service appointment. They can be directly input on a time card for an employee, but ultimately they're in the system and they can actually exist independent of a time card. So one of the requests we get a good bit is, how do I know when someone hasn't created a time card, right? It's the age-old situation where I want to know when data is not there, not necessarily when data is there. So you can see here, I'm joining this and it's missing a time card. So I would know these people have not submitted time cards for that given week. So this is one of the use cases we've solved for with this. We're going to talk about pivot tables a little bit. And then I'm going to pass it over so we can learn a little bit about the WorkMax side. But I want to jump into a little bit of the time activity reporting here. Let me go ahead and open this specific generic inquiry. All right. If you're not familiar with Acumatica, this is the back end of a generic inquiry. We're not going to get too far into the weeds on this, but I do want to kind of walk through what some of this information is and some of the key tables here that we'll be utilizing in our reporting efforts. We've got the time activity here. From that, I'll walk you through the joins, but this table specifically is the one that houses that time information, and it can be broken down by project, by task, by cost code, by employee, by day. So very key table. We're also going to use the time card table as well. One of my favorite fields or tables in this system is this wingman table, which is related to the delegates on the employees. So if you have a delegate access, I guess Acumatica would call you the wingman of that person. I find that kind of fun. Okay, on our joins here, in this use case, we have a employee as that base table. The reason for this is you have the ability to basically filter the output of this to this specific employee's time only. The way you do that is you use what's called an @me function. It looks at your current employee up here in this top right-hand corner, and that pulls only that employee in, and then I would join all the time activities for that given employee. That is one of the ways to filter the data that's coming in, and kind of prevent it from somebody seeing something they shouldn't, and maybe even keep people focused on what they should be focused on. All right, then we join our time activity to that, and then we join the week. For that week ID, you can actually filter given the week. And then we join the time card to the time activities. A lot of times in the system, we're going to start with the time card and join the time activities. This is not necessarily that order, because I want to know if a time card has not been created and time has been logged. And ultimately, having the employee as that base table is helpful in all of those steps. All right. So we're going to look at our parameters here. I've got a couple that I'm not using. You can see this active checkbox is the ones that I am using. Start dates. Those were the ones I was toggling back and forth on. Those are going to be important to pull in a schema of a date field, which you can see here. I'm actually pulling the given fields. And then this is the name that I show in the system. So click this view inquiry. Start date, end date. I could call them here in this name box, whatever I want. That's how I call them into action throughout the generic inquiry itself, and not how it outputs to the end user. All right. You can give defaults with time and dates. It's important to note that you have these defaults given the current date up here. So it's going to default to whatever, I think I have it set to week start and week end. So it would basically be like my current week given this date. So the start, the end. All right. And then you can add other filters as well, or other parameters as well. The way that you would use them is you would then pass them over here to what's called a condition. I only have 3 active. I inactivated these down here. This is a little bit more advanced, but it's a way to basically show only time for someone. I am the given person, or I am the delegate, so I'm supposed to see their time. We've taken that off. We do have a couple items in here, like this one, which is saying, hey, it needs to be between these dates, and it needs to have time. So those two key filters here, and I'm filtering out one specific user. All right, so let's take a look at the output of this. So it's taking my date here. It's adding in start and end to it. I'm going to widen that a little bit to give us more data. All right. So now we can see we've got more data in the system to review. And let's talk about these items. Each line is a time activity. I've got my total hours, and I've got my employee on it. The appointment is showing here for the service side. We can also join in the project and the project task, as you can see right here. Time card is also referenced, so I can drill down into the time card if I need to. So as you toggle through these, you can actually open up a time card for an end user and see if I need to approve, what the details are for that time card. So it's a great way to be able to actually review the data in the system this way. All right, let's talk about pivoting. So maybe let's just save as pivot. This is one of the key features in Acumatica, and I think it's really great with time, specifically because I can group it like I'll show you here. So let's say I want to pull in the employee name as the line, so my rows. Oops. And I want to pull in, maybe we're going to group by, we'll show the values. It's going to be total hours here. All right, summing it. So I'm telling it what to do here. And the date is going to go in columns. I think I've done something to upset the system here. But I can actually round these dates. So I can say, show me by the week, half month, month, quarter, year. So however you want to look at this data, typically with time cards, week, day, or month are what I see, but you can do it as far back as a year if you'd like. And this is the format of that. All right, let's see if I am okay to show this. Perfect. So it's showing you your week here, week 32 of 2021. Here's the hours these people logged, pivoted that simply. And as you change your date parameters up here, it will reflect in the data down here. The coolest part, in my opinion, about the pivots is you can actually drill in. So 37 hours, I want to see what that was. I click on it. Here we are. These are the four time entries for that week from that pivot. So you can actually take a look as you're reviewing time. Maybe you need to review time for the week and say, why is someone under or over a specific time? You can drill into it and kind of find out what's going on with that data. This one hasn't even been released. That's a problem. So you can actually look at all this data. All right. Now, something that I think is great here is if I go to dashboards, we're going to start from scratch with this. GI. Spell it right is important. Okay. Owner role. I'm going to put admin for this. Now, allow users to personalize. This is a cool feature in Acumatica. I don't recommend it right away because when I'm updating this, if a user has a personalized version, I can overwrite what they have and then they lose all of that customization. It kind of gets frustrating for the end user. And you do tend to tweak dashboards a little bit right up front. So typically leave it unchecked is my recommendation. Access rights, very important. Give access to the people that need access. So scroll through the branches, whatever is going to be using this. If it's a specific user, maybe it's a sales rep, maybe it's something like that. Make sure that they have access here. Forgot to make it on the UI. So this is what's going to be searched to be able to show this. I'll go ahead and take away our company designation. Workspace category tells it where it is going to end up over here. All right, last piece here, expose mobile applications. So this is important if you do want to output this onto the mobile device. Okay, so it's a great dashboard, right? So this is how we start. It's all blank. I would add a widget, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here and copy that screen ID. And we will start with, let's see here. I'm going to do a chart. All right. There we go. So it's going to pull in that inquiry we just made. I can actually pass parameters into it if I want to. I'm going to leave the default in, which is fine, but I can designate those here. If I have filters I want to apply, I can apply those here. So I'm going to say all time. Perfect. And I'm going to make these, let's go with a stacked column. All right. I'm going to say employee name, date. Date rounding here is going to be hours. That's fine. And I'm going to sum the total hours. Here's where you tell it the schema that you want it to look like. Typically, this will give it that comma every 1,000. Then save that. Let's see what we got. Hopefully, I did it correct. Okay. So for this, now one thing to consider here is I told it to use the standard parameters, which is week start, weekend, right? So maybe that's not enough for my dashboard. Maybe there's something else I want to do here. So what I'm going to do is actually add parameters to the dashboard to pass through to the parameters on the inquiry. So I go back to my properties, I go to my parameters and start date. Space. And these function similarly to the parameters on the generic inquiry. And let's do, what is my schema object going to be? And this is just what's going to tell the underlying field how to function. The reason I'm using invoice here is I know for a fact it's got a date selector. So it doesn't matter what it's actually driving. It's really just going to give me the option to pick a date. I'll do start date. Perfect. And now I'm going to do end date here. Oops, it does not like spaces. All right. All right. I'm going to use the same field I did here. Make it simple enough. Same thing here. And this is the field that's shown on the screen. Okay, save that. All right, we're going to take a look at the dashboard now and see what's changed. So now I've got my date filters. So let's see if we can pass those in here and get some more data. So on the parameters, again, that corresponds to the parameters on the inquiry. Let's see if we can. We can change them here. Or it looks like one other thing that I could do is pass them as a filter. Let's see here, date. Is greater than or equal to the start date that we have. And this is where I can actually pass the parameter in. And then I'm also going to pull in date.
Daniel, while you're doing that, I have a question in here.
Sure.
It says, does the labor item in Acumatica correspond to the cost code and the job code?
It can. I would need to know the exact specifics there. It is not going to drive your cost code or the job code. Your labor item is typically supplied by the employee. So you can change it on the line that you log. But yes, that you can have it report on the budgets that way, but it does not necessarily mean that it drives what labor item is associated. There are some billing rules that can maybe handle some of that. It kind of depends on the specifics of the question. All right, let's take a look here. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use those parameters on the dashboard itself to pass in, I am taking the parameters away on the inquiry. So all that I had to do there, even though they still exist, I just deactivated those conditions. All right. So let's see if that did anything for us. Oh, I got to give it some dates. Every time I change those parameters, it is pushing things out. Looks like I messed up my entry here. So it's as simple as this to test and then change in the system. Configure, because I want my dates across the bottom. Let's do that here. Date rounding. Let's go ahead and do weeks. And then here, I want the employee name. All right. And value shown, I'm fine with 15. That's how many employees is going to show. It's still summing those total hours. This will look a little bit cleaner. There we go. So here's the weeks. Here's the employee hours for those given weeks. And you can see total hours for those given weeks, right? And the great thing about Acumatica is I can come in here and say, actually, looks like Maxwell Baker is pretty consistent. I don't care about his time, and drill down to what I specifically want to see. And it will automatically update these different widgets as you do that. And then ultimately, if I want to review even further, I can drill into the source here. Right? So I can see exactly what's been logged time-wise, date, all of that. So this is number one for that time activities dashboard. Just kind of a short taste of what we can do with those time activities that come into the system. There is one more thing that I'm running out of time, but I wanted to throw an idea out to y'all that I've found to be quite interesting. You can actually put in a project in your parameters here. And then I could pass the project into the filters on this widget and on any widget. And then I could actually go to a side panel, for instance, on one of these, where the project is on that line. And I can put that dashboard on the side panel and show all time for that project for that given period of time for all sorts of different options there. It's something that I found to be really versatile and useful to the end users. So just wanted to put it out there. We didn't get a whole lot of time to dig into it, but feel free to reach out if you have any questions on that front. I think, let's see, is there any other questions that we have? Selena.
No, I think you answered all that. And just so you guys know, you can throw any questions that you have for Daniel or Mandy in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. Additionally, this will be available as a recording after the webinar. I will send that out to all of you. I did have another question, actually. Okay. Is there a way to see how time looks against projects?
There is. So against a project, let's see here. I will add that field in. It was giving me some trouble earlier, but I think we should be okay. So I would go to the time activity table, right? It's already joined in there. And this is one of the great things about inquiries. You know, we tell our customers building them, you know, we do have training courses to actually teach you how to build these if you would like. It's pretty in-depth and it takes a lot of practice to be able to build them from scratch. But what I'm doing right here, where I know I already have a table and I'm just going to go pull a field from it, that is very easy and it can be picked up with what we would call our 100 level course. All right, so let's see if I throw the project in there. Let's see if we have cost code we can pull from. Oops, misclick. Basically, I'm giving it the table name, which is time activity, and this is the field name over here. So it's a little bit of getting used to the system. I try to pass this little bit of information to everyone because I think it's one of the best things Acumatica has to offer. If I click on that hyperlink, it's relatively new, so maybe you would be on version, I think it's 2021 R2 and on. But this DAX schema browser, and we'll give it a second to load here. But it's basically giving us all detailed information about a given, what's called a DAC or a data access class. So it's a table in the system, and it's going to give us all the field names. It's going to give us all the joins, and it's also going to give us a little bit of anxiety while it spins. So we'll let that load, but let's see what it output now that we have added those in. I'm going to update this. All right. So you can see I have my project here. So even in the time pivot, I'm going to add in, oh, that's not the one we created today. We created the new pivot. It's taking a minute to load because, again, I took off these parameters as filters. So it's now showing everything in the system. So let me see how this looks if we take, let's say, project. If I make my project here and my employee here, let's see what this looks like. So this would show time against a job over, I think I've got it grouped by the week. You can see when time is hitting these different jobs. Jobs on this left-hand column, time here. And I can even, on my dashboard, do similarly with the job now. So if I wanted to copy, paste, and that's another great feature that Acumatica added. It gives me the exact same thing. And now it's a very simple change to what my groupings are. So configure, instead of employee name, I'm going to use project. Okay. Let's see what that outputs. Okay. So now we can see where all our time is going every week, and you can drill into it again. I think that answers the question, I hope. All right. Is there anything else, Selena, that you would like? Oh, I would like to show. I'm sorry. It should be loaded now. Yep. So time activity table. These are all the field names. You can see what type they are, maybe a little in the weeds, but then down here, incoming, outgoing references, you can see how to join time activities to different tables as you're building inquiries. It's pretty cool stuff. You know, here's the project, contract ID to project ID. That's how you join that table in. Anyways, I know I've taken probably more time than I was allotted. I apologize. Hopefully it was helpful.
There is another one, but we'll wait
Okay.
until after Mandy's presentation to answer it.
Awesome.
Wanted to make sure we have enough time to get to the full presentation.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm all done, Mandy. It's your job now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing all that information. Part of my job doesn't really give me access to these systems. So it was kind of fun seeing all the different capabilities in Acumatica and for our own customer base. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm really excited for the opportunity to present alongside Daniel today to present the strengths of two powerful softwares and platforms here. And how grouping those together really creates a huge amount of power and leverage as businesses in construction. Construction really hasn't ever been in higher demand as it is today, and also not been faced with the difficulties that we're faced with today. The top challenges that we're all very familiar with are supply shortages and delays, increased costs of supplies, and of course, a lack of skilled labor. And that's not just in the construction industry. So we're all familiar with these challenges, but on top of those challenges, in construction, we also have to mitigate the risk of surrounding stricter regulations on payroll and safety compliance. And so the need to increase efficiency and productivity has never been greater, and is really critical to the success of your business. We've witnessed with this increased need for more efficiencies and productivity, a shift in construction to move towards technology solutions. In years past, and in fact, when I started with WorkMax a little over 3 years ago, the sentiment that we heard on a regular basis was, we're happy with paper and pen. So an industry that once rejected technology is now looking for solutions to the problems that they're facing in the name of progress, productivity, and compliance. So there's so many amazing options out there to choose from. Trying to decide what to use and when to use it in and of itself can be a challenge. And technology is also changing at an unprecedented rate, with cloud-based softwares now at the forefront of technology that can be updated quickly and easily. It's not enough to keep a software forever, as was once the case in construction. At one point, even just 3 years ago, it was recommended to replace your ERP every 10 to 14 years. Now the recommended time to upgrade your ERP to match your company's needs is 3 to 4 years. So there's so much to consider here in selecting the right software. You've got accounting softwares, payroll software, scheduling, estimating, project management, analytics software. So electronic and mobile communication with all of these at one point were considered luxury, but that's no longer the case. Seamless integration, mobility, and eliminating siloed data is now essential to run and grow your business and be competitive. However, as essential as it is to have all of these tools to help increase your efficiencies and productivity, if your information that you're feeding those tools is inaccurate or incomplete or inaccessible or delayed, those tools are only as powerful as the information you're feeding them. And we saw that firsthand in Daniel's presentation. So in construction, we're dealing with the complexities that most industries don't have. Most job sites are located in areas with no connectivity or shops with low connectivity. We're also dealing with a 95% remote workforce. So getting information in general from those teams and locations can be challenging at best. There's a lot of wasted time going back and forth from the field to the office and back and forth, trying to gather the information that you need to make sure your jobs are staying on schedule. Materials are getting purchased when necessary, safety is being regulated, compliances regulations are being met, and gathering the information just to process payroll are just a few of those challenges. So with WorkMax, we feel like we are the key to eliminating the risk involved in a mobile workforce and the way we collect and deliver the essential live field data. We're the #1 in project management for creating progress, productivity, and compliance. We believe that the key is first mile accurate and live field data. We understand the missing piece in the industry was leveraging existing ERP and finance and other systems while communicating with estimating, scheduling, and stakeholders on the project progress. Simplifying progress, time, and compliance by leveraging simplified data collection is improving profit margins we've seen by 3 to 4%. The biggest concern that we hear on a regular basis from customers is a concern on change management. It will be too big of a change for their guys or it will be too hard for them to use. The key is to literally make field communication as easy to use as an ATM machine or a grocery store checkout scanner, and sending and receiving the right data to existing systems while reducing complexity. We're in a phase where construction leaders are eliminating solutions instead of adding, as we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years. The WorkMax app is a native app, which means that it works on both Android and iOS devices and can work on or offline to collect data from the field. It can also accommodate bilingual needs, as we know is definitely the case in construction, all within a simple clock in and out function. It collects time as well as project, task, and units used information for each employee. We ensure that information's accuracy by eliminating problems in the field, like buddy punching, clocking in at Starbucks down the street, with our biometric facial recognition and our GPS location. Both have alerts that are built into the system to let you know when someone isn't where they need to be. So you'll know where your guys are at, how long they've been there, and what they're working on easily and in real time. And as an added safety net, we've also accommodated multiple levels of time approval, both in the app and in the control center, to ensure the accuracy of that data. So all of that valuable hour and project data is automatically sent back into the control center and then applied to the budgeted hours that you've gathered from Acumatica, as Daniel was just showing us earlier. So now you have the power of Acumatica coupled with the power of live field data. So what makes this real-time data so powerful is being able to put that information into the hands of your project managers and superintendents in the field in real time. So they know where they're at any time during the day based on the clock in and clock out hours of their employees. So they know right where they're at, where they need to be by the end of the day, and what they need to do to get there. It gives them the visibility that they need to allocate their company resources where it matters the most. This is the key to success. This is where profitability gets put into action. The way most companies are currently processing profitability information, though, it usually takes anywhere from 7 to 10 days plus to get that information out to the field and into the hands of their decision makers. So they're collecting the time and job costing information, processing the payroll. In the best case scenario, we'll say within a week. Payroll is then processed within a day or two, and then it takes another day or two for that information to be sent to estimating or ERP, where they're then analyzing and creating reports to then send back out to the field. So you're giving your guys information at that point that's 7 to 10 days old. They're making critical business decisions based off of that old information, and you're already behind. A great example of this was a company that I was talking to last week that was interested in using WorkMax. We were talking about different reporting capabilities within WorkMax, and they really wanted to make sure that we could create a report or had a report that would show a breakdown of the hours against the different phases of a project. So they were really hoping to make sure that we had that. So we started talking about the different time parameters around what it took for them to get that. And I'll just say that it was more than 10 days. By the time they were able to get that information out to their project managers and superintendents, it was more days than it was hours. Needless to say, they were super excited about the improvements that WorkMax could offer them. But more than that, they were excited about the accuracies that it could provide. So with live field data, every role in your business will benefit from the same information. Everyone receives the same information and has access to the same information. So schedulers are empowered with their critical path updates from the field to adjust baselines weekly. Estimators receive a plan to actual performance daily and are able to increase change order accuracy and ongoing estimate accuracy. Finance is able to reconcile project hours daily and weekly with real-time progress against job codes, phases, and accounting codes. So as a superintendent, you have the ability to see a list of all jobs summarized in a way to show you at a glance what's under budget, close to completion, and what's over budget. And you can drill down from there by clicking into the different metrics to see more detailed job information. If you're a project manager, you see your jobs that you're overseeing and the different phases within those jobs, what's trending to finish over budget, what's behind schedule, and what's projected to finish under budget, all based on your current pace. Each phase can be clicked on or selected to see information on your current pace based on the hours and units that you're completing daily, where you need to be to get back on track, and what time you have remaining for the scheduled completion date. So having the productivity metrics based on estimates and budgets allows us to compare actual hours and units based on those budgets. But we've also added an additional metric into this that allows your project managers to add a visual estimate on the completion of a job. They can adjust the completion percentage based on their own visual observations so that everyone knows where they're at in the project completion and keeps everyone on the same page without wasting time that it takes to go back and forth trying to figure out where they're actually at. So everyone can see the important information for them in their roles and responsibilities, and everyone's on the same page. So let's take a look at one of the risks that we see the most in construction, and that's in delays. So there are different types of delays that we deal with in construction. Some are within our control and some aren't. The ones that are within our control are things like supply delays or shortages, or shortage of workers in general and not planning ahead. Some are outside of our control for things like adverse weather conditions, earthquakes, COVID, heaven forbid, that's a bad word nowadays. And then we have compensatable delays for things such as change orders. So all of these delays cost companies thousands of dollars and sometimes millions of dollars, depending on the size of the project. And they can be frustrating for everyone that's involved. So the Construction Industry Institute research found that delays on projects and construction can cause an average loss of 20 to 30%, which I thought was extremely big. So on a large scale project, that's a 3-year project, we'll say it has a price tag of $50 million. Okay. So that's roughly about $45,000 a day. If that project is delayed by the 20%, and we'll go on the shorter end, the 20% that's stated, that's a $10 million price tag for delays. And this is just an estimate. It's difficult to calculate the total loss that's affecting the entire project and those involved. So let's take a smaller scale scenario. So let's say as a general contractor, you have a $500,000 project that's typically going to last 3 to 6 months. So with that 20% delay, you're still looking at $100,000 in substantial loss. So in general contracting too, the scale of loss is even more difficult to calculate because delays affect other phases and the overall completion of a project and being able to move on to other projects as well. So let's look at a real case scenario. So let's say you're laying rebar in preparation of pouring footings for a foundation. And you can see that you're getting close to being done. Your guys are on task, they're motivated, they're moving forward. You know, like most materials, there's a delay or a wait on concrete, and it's about a 3-day wait. So you can take a chance and guess you're going to be completed in 2 days. That happens every day. Excuse me. So you order concrete, hoping your guesstimate was correct. But even if you're right, you still have to wait 1 day. So your guys are finished in 2 days, but you still have to wait 1 day to get the concrete to be able to move on to the rest of your projects. That's 1 day wasted. And if your project's a $500,000 project, you're looking at a loss of about $3,000 for that day. You're also looking at a day of relocating employees and different tasks and losing momentum, a day of subcontractors not being able to finish. So I'm sure you can already calculate in your mind what those costs would be. With WorkMax productivity information, your PMs are going to be able to see that rebar is 90% completed. And based on your current pace, they'll be able to see exactly when you're going to finish that rebar. So in 3 days. So at the current pace, they can predict when they're finished with that phase and order the concrete in advance so that there's no stoppage on the job or wasted time waiting for materials. So 3 days wasted on a job is a huge amount. So how much value do you think that could bring in general? I'll let you do the calculations there. So let's look at another area of risk and how showing information to your field leaders can help your company retain valuable employees that your company needs to stay profitable and competitive. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Construction, construction industry has a turnover rate for employees of 21%. That's a huge, huge amount. So you've got costs involved with rehiring, costs involved with training, and then there's an overall morale loss. And usually with one employee leaving, there's a snowball effect with other employees leaving. So there's a huge amount of resources and costs involved with retaining employees and rehiring employees. So the top 3 reasons that employees will stay from hire to retire for any company really are number 1, competitive pay, number 2, recognition and showing that they're valued, and number 3, consistent work. So what if your project managers could see exactly how your jobs were trending? They could see that a job was trending behind and they were going to finish over budget with a completion date in roughly a week. So the metrics in WorkMax tell them that they need to pick up their pace from the 2.1 that they're currently at to the 2.6 units per hour that they need to be at. So he offers the employees on his job the option of meeting those standards, tells them exactly what they need to do, and offers them either 8 hours of time off or paid PTO, or even an additional bonus, because we all know money talks in construction and with construction workers. So how likely would they be to meet that challenge? And how much more would they find satisfaction in their job and feel recognized and valued as employees? Your key leaders in the office and in the field can see the same metrics here in the control center, and they can work together to offer those incentives and rewards alongside their leaders in the field, creating a united front and unifying a leadership team with the same goals, same visuals, and same messaging. That's huge and a huge key for retaining your skilled labor. So WorkMax with Acumatica powers up projects areas that increase profits while significantly reducing costs in all areas of your business. Project hours in Acumatica from WorkMax provide projected accruals and current time used. Estimators are able to add real production history to RS means and other cost libraries, increasing the bid accuracy while providing a competitive edge. By collecting live and accurate time, we increase payroll accuracy on self-performed work while reducing subcontractor costs and management. Payroll is completed faster and with greater accuracy, and receivables are billed quicker and with greater accuracy by removing paper delays from billing data collection. Safety and compliance are easily attained with the collection of JHAs, permit, COIs, certifications, and checklists digitally, which round out all of the information needed from the field with Acumatica's project information, creating seamless communication with workers and subcontractors. Project managers are able to compare crew performance on projects, empowering them to identify site issues, weather conditions, material issues, and other variables. PMs and supervisors can determine performance obstacles by comparing the same work for multiple locations for optimal project scheduling or production scheduling. And workers and subcontractors are able to onboard site safety training and onboard requirements before even reaching the site, reducing onboarding time by 45 minutes plus per subcontractor. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So in summary, and to close my side of the presentation, I'm sure there's going to be questions. Happy to answer all that I can, and set up time afterwards as well to go through the system more in depth for your company. WorkMax helps in all phases of construction. We help with the planning, the pre-construction, the construction, and is the key to eliminating the risk involved in mobile workforce and the way we collect and deliver your essential live field data. So we simplify the progress. We're simplifying progress, time, and compliance by leveraging that simplified data collection to improving profit margins by that 3 to 4% on average. So we add the value of our system to systems like Acumatica, where you're truly able to leverage the power of those systems in the way that only the live field data can. So thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate you coming and listening. I hope that this was helpful information on both sides.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. I do have a few questions for you. So the first one is, how long does the training and implementation of WorkMax usually take?
It really depends on the company itself and the time that they have to set aside to focus on the training and implementation. I've seen some companies take 2 weeks to get the setup, training, and rollout of the system done. And I've seen some companies take 6+ months to do it. It really just depends on how much time they have to focus on the project itself. But we do have an implementation team that's incredible, and they help from start to finish with the integration, setup, training, and then also helping with the rollout to make sure that you're successful.
Okay, yeah. And then another one says, what systems do you currently integrate with other than Acumatica?
We integrate with most ERP systems, estimating systems, analytical systems. So we have some integrations that are API connections and some that we use our connectivity tool called WorkMax to process or pass information back and forth with a flat file.
And then how do estimates and budgets or how do estimating information and budgeting information get pulled over from Acumatica or other estimating softwares?
So pretty much the same answer as my last answer. So we can either pull that information over through an API integration or with our WorkMax tool to pull over that information. And in some cases, we've partnered with third parties to help set up that workflow and data flow specific to the company.
Okay, and then I have one more coming in here. What what has been the number one challenge in implementing a system like WorkMax?
That's a good question. I think the number one issue that I've seen in my time here has been companies that don't have a top-down unified message to their employees. In construction in general, technology has kind of been pushed against because they don't like change. They worry about Big Brother watching them. They're concerned about them knowing their location or invading their privacy, and that's not what WorkMax is about. So when the company as a whole can be unified in their messaging to improve their productivity, to streamline processes, to gain greater accuracy, and reward their employees for adopting a system like this, that's where we see the most success. That's where we see a faster implementation and adoption process.
That's awesome. Yeah, we see the same thing as well. Like when people are going to have the buy-in, that's when you get the most out of the system and all of that. Well, I don't have any other questions. Do you, Mandy or Daniel, have anything to add?
I don't think so. Like you said, we see the exact same things, Mandy. It's all about buy-in from the top down and change champions throughout the organization.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always surprising to me how gigantic companies are not as unified as they could be or should be. That's always a big shock for me, because these companies have obviously managed to build their companies to the level that they're at, and they have lots of employees. They're making a ton of revenue every year. So that unification is the key to any company's success with anything, really. So yeah, the only other thing that I could add is, with WorkMax being as complex as it is, we'd love the opportunity to talk directly with the people that are in attendance if you're interested, to learn more about your company and help you to know how this can benefit your company as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. And this webinar will be available on demand after this. I'll have to take a little time to make sure that we get that put together, and then I'll send an email out to all of you guys that were on the call, so you'll be able to watch it as much as you need or review it. And I will send out Mandy and Daniel's contact information as well at the end of this call, so that you guys will have access to them if you have any questions or concerns. And as always, your client success managers, Diana and Alyssa, are always available for questions. Thanks for joining us, and I hope that you all got lunch and had a great time on this call and hopefully learned some things. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.